All right, everybody, let's get into Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. Today's guest is former Red Wings goaltender Kevin Hodson. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to see you. How have you been?
Thanks for having me. No, it's been great. My family's doing well, especially with what's happening, with this coronavirus. So I can't complain.
Kevin, it's actually a special day in history for you. On this date in 1993, you signed with the Detroit Red Wings. And I'm going to start this
Yeah,
off by asking you about your NHL debut against the Chicago Blackhawks. We actually had Scotty Bowman on the show last week, and I hear you have a funny Scotty Bowman story of when you made your NHL debut that day. So can you tell us the story?
yeah. You know what? It was. I can kind of remember a little bit of it. I was at the Pontchartrain. We had played Pittsburgh the night before, and I had got put into the game halfway through. Ended up getting a shutout in that half game, and then in the morning the next day, I got a phone call from Dave Lewis, and he had said that you're going to play today. So I immediately, I think, got sick and hung up the phone. I couldn't believe it, and at that time, my mom and my sister were actually flying in to come and watch me play. And then it was actually really a kind of a neat story with Scotty. So right before the game, he called me in and he just said, "Listen, I've said this same speech to some of the famous goalies that I've coached throughout my lifetime. This is, about you today, and just have fun, go with it, and just enjoy the moment because you are now a National Hockey League player and you've earned the right to have this moment." And obviously winning 3-0 and just being able to experience, the Joe Louis crowd and the arena. And then to get a shot at your first NHL game was just something I still remember to this day. And then after the game, it was kind of funny. I was with Dino Ciccarelli, and Scotty was talking to the media. I don't know if he was even talking to Art at the time, but said, "Yeah, that Kenny Hodson's not a bad debut for Kenny Hodson." So when he called me a different name, I was kind of concerned, but Dino said that was actually a good. Dino said it was a good thing. So that was my first NHL game and my NHL story.
The one thing that I wanted to ask you about was that, as much of a jokester, we're definitely going to get into the lighter side of your career, shall we say?
Sure.
But you were always a realist. I mean, you knew what your position was, and that you
Yeah.
tried to make yourself valuable to the team in ways that might not translate on the ice.
You know what? I mean, it's a good point. I think what I learned looking back at my career, some people would question, well, did you want to be a number one goaltender? And the answer was, I think all of us wanted to be number one goaltenders, but I kind of found a niche for myself of being a backup to Chris and to being a third goalie with Chris and Mike. And listen, those two guys are Hall of Fame goaltenders. I think they were fantastic. Definitely a lot more skilled than me and more talented than me. And I recognized that and I realized that. So for me, I felt that I was actually a really good backup. I really embraced that role. I felt that I had a good read on the room of what to add and what to bring. And I tried to do different things to add value to the team and to the team dynamics. And I thought I did it really well. And I got to a point where I felt that I could play, yeah, very well every couple of weeks or 3 weeks. And I felt that that was a good role for me and a good niche for me. And I think it backfired, I think, at the end of my career because, you get labeled as, well, this guy just wants to be a backup or this guy's not good enough to be a starter. But I felt that, playing for Detroit and the role that I had, I thought it was a really good role for me and I thought I embraced it and I did very well in it.
Kevin, as a part of your time in Detroit, you were part of the 97 Stanley Cup team, brought the Stanley Cup back to Detroit for the first time in over 40 years. That's special within itself. And as you said, you were playing behind guys like Ozzy and Mike Vernon. What was it
Yeah.
like playing with that team, though, as a whole? Not only those two guys, because I'm sure you learned a lot from them, but that team was spectacular. So, what was it like being a part of all of that?
You know what? It was surreal, to be honest. You're skating around with, Iserman and Larry Onoff and Shanahan, Murphy, Coffey, Cicerelli. The list goes on and on. Slav Fetisov, Fedorov at the time was at his prime. And then guys like Mike Vernon and Chris Osgood, and who, Ozzy was a backup that year, if you can even believe that. So I've actually taken a lot of what I've learned in that dressing room with those type of guys, and I've actually put it into my professional practice life of just how they were so committed to excellence, the process that they had, the work ethic, the drive, the accountability. To this day, when I still talk to these, to all of my old teammates, we're still friends, and we all had roles on that team. We all had a huge mutual respect for each other. We all respected our individual talents and what we all brought to that team. But every week it was just fun to be there. There was lots of different stories, lots of things happening. But we were like the New York Yankees at the time, and we'd go on road trips, and half of the stadiums would be Red Wing jerseys. It was just unbelievable to see. I didn't see many Hodson jerseys, but I had to get my families to travel with me. But I did see a lot. I did see a lot of Red Wing jerseys in the stands. Put it that way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the practical jokes that you played. My all-time favorite, and I don't know if you remember this, Mark Bergevin, who's now the general
Yeah.
manager of the Canadiens, put you on a flatboard and dressed you up like Hannibal Lecter and had you and
Yeah.
I happen to be talking to Steve, and he put you right in front of Steve, and you did your whole Hannibal Lecter routine. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
That was one of the all-time classics. But I just want to play
Yeah.
word association, because there's a couple of yours that I really enjoyed. The room service, television remote,
Yeah.
the pancake ladle,
Yeah.
and the shoe shine. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
you can elaborate on all of those or not, but those are some classic moments in the Red Wing career of Kevin Hodson.
Yeah, that just kind of I think just states kind of how bad I really was as a player then. Yeah, no, I like to do things. So if we ever went to and I would dictate it based on how many guys or who would be shooting at my head for practice, and I would kind of write their names down, and then I would try to get them back quietly, and I was actually pretty good at it, so I never got caught. And then I would kind of blame other people or play stupid. But yeah, I would if we went to some fancy hotels, obviously I'd get the room service. I'd wait till about 11 o'clock at night when everybody was sleeping, and I would take my room service thing, and I would put down, I'd order hundreds of dollars worth of room service. And I remember at the time Thomas Holmstrom um, didn't speak very much English, and we were in California. I still remember at the Santa Monica Lowe's, and I think I ordered him about $150 worth of room service at about 8 in the morning. And then it would come, I'd hear the knock on the door, and he wouldn't even know what to say. And sure enough, it'd get wheeled in, but even like going through buffets, I'd take peanut butter, or I would take syrup, and I would nicely put it underneath the ladles of things. And unfortunately, one time the coach actually picked it up first, so that didn't go too well. I was the only one in the room, so they kind of put two and two together. So I don't think Barry was too happy with me for a while. I remember the one time we were at a hotel, and we brought a Coke machine. It took us about an hour and a half to bring it down the Ritz-Carlton hallway, and I think we locked Vernie in his room. And I won't say who helped me, but I know there was four of us, and it was a heavy machine, I'll tell you that. But it took us an hour and a half, but we got it down, and we put it right in front of his door, and he couldn't get out. So that's what we do in our spare time. I know now. I don't know. They're probably eating
I'm
and
taking notes of
other
these just
things.
in case I ever need some practical joke ideas. So these are
Yeah,
great.
no, it's embarrassing. It's
And
embarrassing to
unfortunately,
now.
we only have time for one more question, but I have to ask you. We've heard
Okay.
Art called you Ticker a couple of times, and your teammates called you
Yeah.
Ticker. What is the
Yeah.
story behind that nickname?
So quickly, I had SVT, or heart arrhythmia. And when I was playing in Adirondack, we were playing a game, and it happened to me right before we were going to the arena. And Chris Draper was my roommate in Adirondack with Craig Martin. And I had said to Chris, Chris, I don't feel right. My heart seems to be beating out of my chest. And I was a rookie that year. It was probably my fifth or sixth game in the season that year. And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just, you're just nervous." And he was trying to talk me out of just, relax, and it's going to be fine and everything else. So we drove to the arena, and I said to him, I said, "No, I don't feel right. This doesn't feel like nerves." And anyways, I got to the arena. They put the heart monitor on me, and it was about 200 beats a minute. So I got rushed to the Glens Falls Hospital. And at that time, it had stopped when I got to the hospital, but they knew it was something. So I had flown up to Detroit. They did tests there, and then I ended up getting another arrhythmia when I played against San Jose. And I remember that I called Paul Coffey over and said, "Hey, my heart's it's not right." And then I went off the ice, and then that's when they hooked me up to a machine, realized what I had, and then Chris Draper nicknamed me Ticker, and that was it. Once you get a nickname, you can't erase it. It's not up to you to decide what they call you. So sure enough, it stuck, and then. Yeah, I just, obviously with the marketing department, they ran with it. And then I remember when I was playing some games, they'd have a heartbeat and other things. And then fans started calling me Ticker. People still call me Ticker now. I get fan mail and they're like, "Hey, Ticker." And my kids think it's the strangest thing because now I'm old and, they can't, picture me being a professional athlete, how I look now. So it's interesting for them to know that, yeah, your dad was called Ticker and here's the reasons why. But, it was definitely, I was definitely in good hands, and I know the Illiches. I do have a lot of respect, and I have to thank them because they really, they went above and beyond what they had to do for my health, and they gave me really good care, and I got my 2 surgeries at the Cleveland Clinic. So far so good. I'm still here. I'm still ticking.
Love that. Still ticking. That has to be one of the best nicknames I've ever heard, honestly. And it's got a great story behind it. You should just put that on your business cards too.
Yeah, I should. Yeah, not many of my clients know the Ticker story now, but I have to thank Chris. I mean, Drapes was the one that called me that, and it just stuck. And then Ozzy kept calling it, and then sure enough, no one ever called me Kevin. I think until I retired, and about 5 years after I retired, then people started calling me my real name. So it brings back a lot of memories to be called Ticker. Put it that way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kevin. It has been so great to have you and so great to hear some of these awesome stories. And also a big thank you to our friends at Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light.